I have some more questions here. We're going to go around the panel. I did actually really quickly, I'll just show you the Ukraine thing, then we'll move on from the war thing. Nick, if you could pull it up. So on the left here, you have Ukrainian women who are screenshotted on dating apps when they were able to flee to Stockholm and the United Kingdom and Barcelona and Lisbon. And where's the nice place in Portugal? Is that Portugal or Spain?
Lisbon.
Is that Portugal? Anyways, Ukrainian women were found on Tinder trying to go to the club, trying to, get their hot girl summer on, whatever. That's what you have on the left. Ukrainian women on dating apps and Tinder trying to get dicked down by foreign men. On the right, well, we can't show it, but on the right, you have dead Ukrainian men and soldiers. I'll ask the question one more time. If that picture is a manifestation of not just the Ukrainian conflict, the Ukraine conflict, but all wars throughout history, perhaps excluding the Tinder. Do any of you who said both change your mind? Seeing that image.
I mean, how about the women that are like actually suffering, not the women that you just put up on Tinder?
Primary.
So then stop talking about just women who are on Tinder.
You brought up, exactly.
Hello? There are women who are suffering and then there's women who are on Tinder. Like, what?
I think the point is the women are alive and still living their lives.
But not every woman who is alive and dealing with the suffering due to their husband or their father going off.
Here, let me.
And also with the Ukrainian
I'll just
men.
engage with you on this. Okay, I'll just engage with you. Hold on.
Do you think
I'll just engage with you. I'll engage with you on this.
Sure.
Okay, so yes, not every single woman is on Tinder, but if you're a Ukrainian man, there's 0 Ukrainian men that are on Tinder in Stockholm, in Oslo.
You don't think there's any Ukrainian men in Tinder in any of those places? Honestly. And think about the older men too that aren't fighting in the war.
Intentionally? Are you trying to argue that there's just as many men?
Did I say that?
Do you recall when I said no, men could not leave the country?
Not any men.
So it's actually plausible. Yes. No, from the age of 18 to 60 or 65, men could legally not leave the country. If you did, you would be imprisoned, you'd be punished. They beat a lot of the men who did try to flee.
Right.
If you see videos of these men trying to cross the border, the Ukrainian military police will apprehend these men and often beat them.
So no, they're not on Tinder.
It actually would be fair for me to say that there's a good probability, at least, I don't know how things have changed. I still think men can't even leave the country. This is now, we're 2-3 years into this conflict. I think it actually would be fair of me to say that there are no men in Stockholm, no Ukrainian men in Stockholm, just partying it up, swiping on girls, fucking hot Swedish chicks.
I mean,
then pull up the statistic.
The statistic.
Yeah, the statistic.
I don't need a statistic. Hold on, let me answer her thing.
I'm sure there was
the statistic is that you can
that weren't in the country when it went to war.
Do you doubt my assertion that men between the ages of 18 to 60 were not allowed to leave the country? I could pull up a CNN, I could pull up BBC. Tell me the news organization which you respect, and I'll gladly pull it up.
I honestly do not know what this has to do with Tinder. All I'm saying is that I'm sure there's men who are on Tinder in Ukraine.
No.
Listen. I think there's Ukrainian men on Tinder, but they probably weren't in the country when the war happened. They probably are maybe half citizens of other countries. Maybe they already fled the country. Maybe they weren't there. So there might be. But to the statistic that was there, sure, they are the primary victims, if that's what you want to hear.
That's not the argument I'm trying to make at all. But
do you think that the Ukrainian men don't feel like their women that are fighting this war in Ukraine, you don't think that they feel like their women, their daughters and their grandmothers are not suffering? You don't feel like that? They don't feel like that themselves?
Again, that's not the argument I'm making.
Could you tell us the argument you're trying to make?
But we're just having
do
a
you guys
debate.
know the definition of primary?
Yes, they're all suffering. Yes. The daughters are suffering. The mothers are
Ukrainian
suffering. The wives are suffering.
Yeah, and I just agreed with you.
What is the argument you were trying to make? Just tell us. So we
I've literally repeated it multiple times.
Please say it again. Yeah, please say it.
That
again.
men are the primary victims
Men
of
are
war.
the primary victims of war, and I've provided several examples.
So what does this have to do with these specific men being on Tinder? Like, genuinely.
What? It's the women who are on Tinder.
I think she's just saying...
It's Ukrainian women. It's to illustrate
But
the
they're not
difference.
victims because they're on Tinder.
It's to illustrate
Even
the
though their
difference.
fathers might have died.
As a woman,
even though they might be on Tinder
They're
and
victims,
doing the crazy
but they're
shit
not
they're
the
doing.
primary victims because they have the privilege to be on Tinder and not in war. I'm just saying,
All right,
why
I'm
did
just
you...
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know. You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know.
You're as cold as ice. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know. You're as cold as ice.
You're as cold as ice. You never take advice. You want paradise, but someday you'll pay the price. I know.
You're as cold as ice.
You're as cold as ice. You never take advice.
You're as cold as ice.